Welcome back YouTube. Today we're going to continue with the 10-week fat loss series. If you haven't caught up with the other videos, this series is simply me showing you how I'm going to go about dropping roughly 20 pounds over 10 weeks to get in shape. This video is going to mark week 3. I'm going to walk you through the progress that we've seen up until this point, and then the adjustments that I'm very much likely going to need to make. I'm also going to walk you through my thought process behind the adjustments to give you a bit of an idea, guidance to how to do this when it comes to your own fat loss goal. Okay, so just to recap where I am at the minute. Currently I'm on 10,000 steps a day, hitting 2,800 calories and 5 sessions, weight training sessions a week. Okay, now up to this point, over the 3 weeks, the first 2 weeks I dropped 3 pounds each week. This week I dropped just shy of 1.5 pounds. Okay, so that change in rate of loss is actually reduced by half for this week. Now, as I mentioned in a couple of videos back, normally when changes to progressions happen or rate of loss happens, I would normally give it 2 weeks before making any real adjustments. Okay, because sometimes weight can fluctuate. Sometimes in a given week weight might not give you a true representation of what is actually really happening, and sometimes you need to give it 2 weeks to really see how things are planning out. However, I'm trying to achieve a decent rate of loss within a 10-week period. 10 weeks actually isn't that long. So for my scenario now, I'm actually probably going to need to make adjustments maybe a little bit quicker than I would actually advise. So I'm going to make adjustments going into next week. I'm going to walk through what those adjustments are now, why I'm going to make them in the way that I'm going to make them. However, like I said, if you are in this situation, you're going through your own fat loss phase, and maybe you've got a bit of a longer time frame than 10 weeks, you've got longer to do it, then potentially give yourself an extra week if you haven't seen the rate of loss that you've wanted, just to double check that things are actually in the right place or not in the right place and need adjusted. Okay, don't rush into making adjustments. One of the reasons for that is because you probably only have a certain amount of tools that you can use to help increase the size of the deficit, to help get that rate of loss back where you want it. Okay, now fortunately for me, my expenditure isn't too high at the minute for me, and my intake is relatively high, which means I have quite a lot of tools available. So even though I'm going to make an adjustment, let's say quite quickly, after only seeing rate of loss maybe change or slow down after 1 week, I've got quite a lot of tools available, which means that if I do make them now, it's not like I'm going to run out of them anytime soon. Now, just remember, I am wanting a 2 pound a week loss. Okay, again, I've walked through this in the earlier videos, so if you haven't watched them, do go and watch them, because I explained my plan at the beginning. But I'm looking for about £2 a week loss. So I'm still on track because the first 2 weeks I dropped more than that. Now, I'm roughly then about £0.5 pound, potentially, behind the rate of loss that I want, seeing as I dropped roughly 1.5 pounds this week just gone. Which means I need to try and increase the deficit by £0.5 pound to get back to that £2 a week loss. Now, again, going back off that first video, it's not exact maths, but roughly we know that if we are in a 500 calorie deficit a day, that is going to equate to £1 a week loss, right? So if I want to increase the deficit by £0.5 pound a loss a week, then I need to increase the deficit by 250, because that's half of 500. So I basically need to then make adjustments to my deficit to try and increase that deficit by 250 calories to get that extra £0.5 pound. Now we can do that through intake, we can do that through expenditure. We're going to do it from a combination of both. And all I'm simply going to do here is drop calories by 200. So I'm going to drop calories from 2,800 to 2,600. And then I'm going to increase steps to 12,000. Why 12,000? So an extra 2,000. Gauging how many calories you burn from expenditure can be difficult. I'm going to assume that for about 1,000 steps, going to be roughly about 50 calories. That is a guesstimate. Okay, it will change from individual to individual. That is a bit of a guesstimate. So I'm going to increase it by 2,000 just to be safe, right? So the 200 reduction in food, 200 calories extra deficit, and the 2,000 increase in steps, let's say roughly 50 increase in calories, going to equate to a 250 increase in the size of that deficit. So I've gone from 10,000 up to 12,000 steps, which is going to be an extra 50 calories burn. I've gone from 2,800 calories to 2,600 calories, which is going to be 200 calories fewer. And I'm sticking to 5 weight training sessions a week. So that the addition of 200 calories and 500 calories in terms of increasing the size of the deficit is going to be an extra 250 calories towards our deficit. That, again, it's not exact maths, should work towards an extra half a pound loss per week. So next week, what we expect to see is a 2 pound a week loss. We'll assess how these changes get on come next week's video, and we'll see where we're at. If we get that rate of loss, sweet, happy days. The adjustments have worked, we're in a good place. If not, then we potentially need to revisit it. If you've seen the other videos, you'll also see that I go through that checklist of the feedback that I'm looking for. Okay, so the feedback in terms of energy, sleep, hunger, training performance, mood. Okay, all those things for me right now are still in a fantastic position. So making these adjustments shouldn't really hinder any of those things. But again, after making these adjustments in the next coming weeks, we'll look at those feedback markers and we'll assess it. This is why getting feedback and measuring data, so stuff like calories, steps, can be so important, because it helps you make adjustments relatively accurately towards your goal. Okay, and it also makes you or helps you dictate which actions are going to be better, right? Because as this fat loss series continues, I will likely need to make more adjustments in the future, and when I come to make more of those adjustments and I come to dictate where I'm going to make those adjustments, looking at the feedback will give me great indications into where I need to make them. So there you have it, that's week 3 going into week 4. Adjustments now made, so we'll see how we get on with those adjustments. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any questions on what I'm doing here, do throw them down below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe so you can keep up to date with this series. Take care.